But
What are you doing?
I'm trying to go to sleep.
You're real sleepy today, aren't you?
But,
Are you real sleepy?
but,
You're pretty sleepy today, aren't you?
but,
Let's get up and check your pads, your pants.
shit in my pants.
Can we go to the bathroom?
But,
Let's go to the bathroom.
go to the bathroom.
Yes.
What will I do in there?
Let's check your pants and make sure they're clean.
What?
Let's make sure you're clean.
Or can I just look I am now?
Well, let's get up and go to the bathroom.
No,
No?
I'm not gonna go.
Do you want a drink?
No,
You want a drink of water?
no,
Let's take a drink of water.
I'm not gonna do it.
How come?
You can't kill me, can you?
No.
Okay,
You just want to sleep?
I'm gonna sleep.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night, dear.
Well, they say you can't kill
You
me,
can't kill me.
can't kill me. So paranoia, we'll see later on in the lecture, is a symptom of this. And he really got paranoid at the end about,
He would pace in the house all night long, wondering if I was gonna kill him. And then he would think there were people outside that wanted to kill him.
you know. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, we're going to talk about dementia. The objectives are here. And number 3, describe the management of dementia-related diseases in terms of the social implications and IADL. You know what ADL is? Activities of daily living, like bathing, eating, that sort of thing. IADL is instrumental activities of daily living. And those have to do more with getting along in society. You know, being able to drive, being able to balance checkbook, write a check, those types of things, pay your bills. Those are the IADLs that are more, at least as important as the ADLs in being able to get along. Before we get to dementia, though, let's go and review a little bit about delirium. I mentioned it some the other day as a state from which you can essentially recover if you find the reason for it. You're going to get delirium more in psych in a couple of weeks. But I wanted to give you a little bit of it here because you really need to be able to distinguish delirium from dementia. As it says in the third bullet, or fourth bullet point there, it's most often due to a treatable illness, and it's quite frequently mistaken for a mental illness like dementia, or schizophrenia, or some other type of problem. Unlike dementia, delirium is a true medical emergency. You don't want to miss some of the significant serious causes of delirium. Dementia, being slow, insidious, and progressive, is not really a true emergency. Causes of delirium, there are a whole bunch of the reasons here, and some of these we went over the other day. Okay. The symptoms of delirium would be disordered attention. You just can't keep them focused on anything. You cannot get a history out of these people because they can't stay focused long enough to answer your questions. They really have no insight into why they're there in the ER or why you would be bothering them. So tangential communication, you see a lot with, if I ask you a question, they just go off on some bizarre explanation about nothing. An example would be something like confabulatory syndrome, which is a nervous system problem we'll talk about next week, that you might go and see this gentleman in the hospital, and you sit down to start to gather a history from him, and then he starts talking to you, telling you that he was the fourth person to walk on the moon, you know, and he played for the Yankees and was the third. He was a relief pitcher and essentially won the third game in the '68 World Series. I mean, just what? So when you get off on this tangential communication, it feeds into a real difficulty in being able to get a history. Anomia is an inability to recognize usual objects, like you can't recognize the computer or the coffee cup or anything like that. Agraphia, graphesthesia that we've already been, this is the inability to do that. And acalcula, Don, that you see in the picture there, can you imagine him balancing a checkbook in that stage? This guy was a multi-millionaire from investments in his life. I mean, he was a brilliant guy, and there he is at 89 years old in that state. Retropulsive gait disorder means walking, essentially moving backwards. That if I get you to stand up in front of me, you're stagger backwards. That's what that means. Diagnosing delirium, it's a symptom. It's not a disease. It's a symptom. And well, problem with this is that it can be due to things that mask other more serious things. Like it says here, peritonitis in an acute abdomen. A person could be toxic from appendicitis and present in a confused state, and you miss the rupturing appendix. So this is something you've got to get at to the root cause of delirium, and it's very difficult to do. Standard labs there are shown, and if you can't figure it out, you got to start scanning. You got to start poking. And the ammonia level then would be in the case of somebody with end-stage liver disease, where their ammonia, remember, the liver converts ammonia to urea. So end-stage liver disease, cirrhosis, whatever, elevated ammonia levels produce delirium like you wouldn't believe. And it doesn't take, they don't have to be very high. I guess that's one of the, you know, when you're trying to distinguish an elevated BUN versus an elevated ammonia, since they're related, you know, what distinguishes them? Elevated BUN is renal, ammonia is liver, BUN causes uremia with its problems, and uremia can cause a delirium state as well, as will an elevated ammonia level. Treatment, you got to fix the problem. You got to find and fix the problem. As always, when you give glucose, and hypoglycemia is a cause of delirium. Before you give that 50 amp of D50, make sure you give that shot of thiamine, an IM or IV shot of thiamine. Doesn't matter, you can give it IM, this is fine. Okay? And sedation is, you try to delay it until you have the cause. Unless the patient is going to be, is going to try to harm themselves or to the nursing staff, wait until you have the fix before you start sedating them. And a short-acting benzodiazepine like Valium or Ativan or clonazepam works pretty well to do that. If it ends in PAM, it's pretty much a benzodiazepine. Okay. Compression palsies would be if you wipe them out and they fall asleep on their arm for 12 hours, and the next thing you know, they have a compression injury to their radial nerve, and now they can't raise their arm. So that's what that means, compression palsies. Versus dementia. Dementia is, there's the definition, a progressive, steady decline in intellectual function. Cognition is the big thing here. We'll go over what cognition here is in a second. Comportment is is essentially behavior. It's how a person behaves. That's the definition of comportment. Like delirium, it's not a diagnosis. Alzheimer's is the diagnosis. Alzheimer's dementia. Dementia is a symptom. If you look at cognition, this is what cognition is all about right here. Knowledge, understanding, awareness, comprehension, that goes into cognition. And that's all dependent upon memories. You can look at those things right there. Knowledge about how you use a computer, understanding of what a computer is for, acquaintance. It's all about memories. So dementia and memories, there's a pattern here we're establishing. If you talk about memories, there are different types of memories. Declarative memories are just based on fact, and they use those areas of the brain to build your declarative memories. Facts, data, events. Things like when do you pay your light bill? That type of stuff is, when do you pay taxes? It's April 15th. That type of thing, something you always remember. Interoceptive would be information. It says information gained through experience with phenomena. Amygdala is another one. The insula that Massengill pointed to this morning. And we'll go over the insula next week. But these are, it says affective. And these are affective. These are the things that sort of make you, you. Kind of, you're a good person, or you're not a good person. Or I don't want to be around you, or that kind of thing. How you present in the world is based on your memories. Procedural memory is just motor, like riding a bike, language, stuff that you do over and over that you don't even have to think about. That's what a procedural memory. Now, executive memories are the ones that are important here. We're talking about dementia. Because things like insight, morality. I know I'm not supposed to murder people. Those are executive type memories that you learn, and they're the ones that a lot of times will go away in dementia. Okay? Prefrontal cortex is the area, so up in here. So you remember the frontal lobotomies. It's actually a prefrontal lobotomy. What happens when you do a prefrontal lobotomy is it makes the person docile. They have no motivation. They don't care. They lose insight. They lose ambition. If you don't know that, watch One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Jack Nicholson. Did I ever tell you that? One of the best movie ever made. Death of that. I think he won an Oscar for that. I think he won an Oscar. All right. The DSM is a book, or actually it's an online thing. It's the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. We've operated on DSM-4 for years and years and years. Now they have a DSM-5. So what this does is it lists every abnormal human behavior, and it lists the criteria for diagnosis, and it's a very comprehensive manual. You can Google it, it's online. You can Google it. But they characterize dementia as this. Memory loss is number one. It's consistent. And then one or more cognitive impairments. And I'll get into that in just a second. And then an impairment of your IADLs. And it's not due to delirium. It's can't be due to a correctable cause. So if you look at the IADLs, this thing is called the Lawton scale, and you don't have, there's not a pass-fail here. It's not like Glasgow-Coma scale, it's a continuum. So people, it says right here, the IADLs decline earlier than the ADLs. That is absolutely true. Don lost all of those, but could still put his own clothes on, could still feed himself, could still wash himself, could still brush his teeth. But he scored a 0 on all of those where he was in the video. It was, did I tell you about his, when I got him his first nurse? It was the funniest thing. I'd known this guy for decades. I didn't know he had any money. I mean, he lived, that was his house. That was the house he lived in since 1927. So, you know, he had bought no clothes. The house still had the furniture in it that his mother had bought in the 1950s. I mean, he just spent no money on himself, or didn't go anywhere. He was a homebody. That's what he did. Never married, no kids. He drove a, I don't know how old this truck was, one of those little Chevy B210s or something. You know those little, I mean, it was a POS. And so I realized he needed to have care. So the first nurse I got him would come over and just stay from 5 to 7 p.m. Monday through Thursday, just to make sure he got dinner. Right? And he could fix his other dinner. This was a few years ago before that video. And so I knew he had a lot of investments. I knew he had several $1 million, but they were tied up in investments. So I told him, so the nurse started working on Monday, and I told him, because he always complained he had no money. And he didn't want to pay her $20 an hour unless she bought the groceries. Otherwise, he thought she only should be paid $10 an hour. I said, no, Don, I got to take care of it. I got to take care of it. But anyway, I called him up and I said, Don, I'm going to come over there tonight. This was on, so she started on Monday, got to pay her on Thursday. I'm going to come over there on Wednesday after work. We'll sit down with your investments. We'll find something we can liquidate that we can put in a checkbook or something I can start paying the nurse. So I go over there, and the first thing on the top is an account he had with Scottrade. He had about $25,000 in it. I said, well, this is perfect. This will keep us going for a while. Well, I'll come over here tomorrow and get you. There's a Scottrade office right up the street. We'll go up there and take care of it. He said, well, why don't we just pay for it out of my checking account? I said, Don, you always say you don't have any money. Do you have any money in your checking account? So he goes in the wallet back in the bedroom. He comes back in there with the bank statement. He said, I think so. He handed me the bank statement. In his checking account, he had $150,000 in his checking account. He had no savings account with Chase Bank. He had $150,000 in a checking account. And here he was, still driving at the time, carrying around a blank check in his wallet. I said, okay, well, he just went from a 2 to a 1. So that was... causes of dementia here. There are several different causes. Cognitive aging. You know, when people get older, they just start losing some memories. Forget where they put the freaking car keys, and old-timers disease. You know, it's not Alzheimer's disease. They just slow down. They just slow down. Dementia to a slight degree, or to a mild dementia degree, is just a normal part of aging. Just like your blood pressure is going to go up as you get older. It's just a normal part of aging. Okay. Drugs, though, you've got to make sure that you're not doing something to cause dementia. And all of these things have the potential to do it. Polypharmacy in the geriatric folks is just crazy. They're not like Good Shepherd patients that are on 10 different medicines for their 5 different chronic diseases. These are people that, every time they go to the office, they have, they might have a little complaint, another drug is thrown to them. So wherever you can, either try to combine drugs or just not, drugs are not the answer for everything. And so when you get into these geriatric folks, they don't know any better. They're on 20 different medications for Lord knows what. You just gotta watch out for that. Demyelinating processes like MS, you're gonna have a lecture next week on MS. I saw the PowerPoint. It's really a nice lecture. So, hydrocephalus, we talked about normal pressure hydrocephalus in the geriatric population. Dementia is part of that, or it says normal pressure right there. Dementia, along with the gait and incontinence, are typical there. When you're talking about dementia, there's a couple of different things here. It says right here, posterior type. There's an anterior type dementia and a posterior type dementia. Posterior type involves the things like memory, language, and then some motor function. Anterior type dementia involves more frontal lobes, temporal lobes, amygdala. It has more related to behavior than these actual things. Okay? And then, of course, masses. Any kind of mass can produce dementia. All right? Infections, we've talked about CJD and syphilis. You should probably get that question right. HIV is on there. We know HIV is going to be in the nervous system. PML, we talked about PML, I think, yesterday. Did we talk about PML? Fortunately, this is seen much less and less often now that HIV treatment has gotten so much better. Toxoplasmosis as an opportunistic infection in HIV-infected people, as well as coccidia, cryptococcosis. Metabolic problems, Wilson disease, copper metabolism. Remember the Kaiser-Fleischer rings around the iris from anatomy, from the deposition of copper. Alcohol, obviously, B12, and thyroid disease. Alcohol, when you say alcohol, there are a couple of different types of mental illnesses. You'll probably cover these in psych. And I mentioned one of them yesterday, Korsakoff syndrome. It's actually, that's why you do the thiamine. You want to prevent Korsakoff syndrome, which is an encephalopathy. But if you Google it, it's Wernicke's. It's Wernicke-Korsakoff. It's actually two things. Alcohol-related dementia is Wernicke's. But then if it progresses and you do something like dextrose on top of it without the thiamine, that produces the structural Korsakoff syndrome. And then vascular dementia is due to advanced thrombotic disease. Lacunar infarcts, next week we're going to talk about what a lacunar infarct is, but just suffice it to say it's a deep brain type infarct, usually related to hypertension.
So when someone says that they had a relative that died of vascular dementia, what exactly does that? Because the dementia is the symptom of their vascular disease then, right?
Yeah, I think it's in this lecture towards the end. Vascular dementia is just a progressive, advanced thrombotic disease
Okay.
that results in just slow degeneration of the CNS.
Okay.
And then we get to what we're actually talking about today. We're not going to spend any time on Pitt disease or spinocerebellar degeneration. Let's go with Alzheimer's and Lewy body disease. Those are the ones you're going to see frequently. Okay. Alzheimer's, there are millions of people that deal with, have to suffer with Alzheimer's, and they're growing every year. As it says here, 5.3, in other words, over 95% of them are over the age of 65, which is good. It's really tragic to see a 50-year-old with Alzheimer's. It's horrible. That constitutes 10% of everybody over the age of 65. So it's a huge problem. You see the cost down there in the bottom bullet point. The one above that, it's interesting that since 2000, so just within the last 20 years, heart disease deaths have gone down 14%. Yet look what's happened to Alzheimer's related deaths, up around 89%. So one thing you should be aware of is you can say that you die of Alzheimer's, but you really don't die of Alzheimer's. Don did not die of Alzheimer's. He had severe Alzheimer's, but that wasn't what killed him. And that's not what kills people with Alzheimer's disease. What kills people is just what you saw there. He just decided on a Sunday he didn't want to get up. And he, no matter how much we went in there to get him up, to feed him, to make sure he didn't get dehydrated, he just quit. He quit. He just quit. You know, he wouldn't eat, he wouldn't drink. We were trying to jam down Ensure. My wife was so upset. Now this was on Sunday, I think it was on Sunday. On Friday, he was so dehydrated, my wife made me bring home a bag of fluid and run an IV in him. Because she was convinced that he was uroseptic, and we just get him rehydrated, he'll perk up. No, he's not going to perk up. He perked up for a few hours because he had a liter of fluid in him, but he went right back down. And he just quit eating. And he started sleeping more and more and more. And on Thursday, he died. He just quit breathing. Now, he quit breathing because I think the hospice nurse killed him, but that's okay. I mean, I told you about that, right?
You told our humanities group.
I told you, man. Okay. Had him on hospice, so the hospice nurse came in on, he died on Thursday. The hospice nurse came in on, I think it was Tuesday, and said, well, he appeared agitated. She gave him 10 milligrams of morphine IV. Well, 10 milligrams of morphine would put you to sleep for a long time. So his respiratory drive went way down, and for about 24 hours, he was kind of teetering, and then he perked back up when he got over the morphine. On Thursday, she came back in to check on him and said, well, he appears agitated. And she gave him another 10 milligrams of morphine at 7 o'clock that morning, and by 11 o'clock, he quit breathing. So I'm pretty sure that it was the morphine that killed him. But regardless, he hadn't eaten or had anything to drink in days. His urine output was 0. So he was not going to live. That's what killed him. It wasn't the Alzheimer's. Okay? Any questions about that? Okay. If you look at, you know, when we talk about old-timers disease versus Alzheimer's. In Alzheimer's, the reason you can tell them apart is that in Alzheimer's, there are actual structural things in the brain that you know they have Alzheimer's. It really doesn't matter if you have old-timers dementia versus Alzheimer's. It's the same. I mean, it's the same in terms of how you would treat it, but histologically, there is a difference because there are histological features of Alzheimer's disease. Paramount of those are things called plaques and tangles. If you look at the slides of an Alzheimer's patient, there are things in the brain called plaques and tangles. You see these things right here, these are depositions of amyloid. Those are the plaques. If you see in this low power slide here, you see all these plaques in an Alzheimer's brain. Tangles are within the cell itself. These are, this is a protein called a tau, T-A-U, the tau protein. So in this image here, what they've done is they've got a marker for amyloid and tau, and showing you that in Alzheimer's disease, how progressive the presence of these proteins are in the brains of these folks. Okay? So those are two of the things that, when they're present at autopsy, you know, you can make the diagnosis then absolutely, unequivocally, of Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease, you don't have to wait until autopsy though. You can do it in CT. You can, this is a normal brain, and then as you decline with cognition, the amount of gray matter decreases and decreases and decreases. This is where you have the, remember I was talking about hydrocephalus ex evacuo? Well, you can see here, the ventricles are expanding here, and it's because of the decrease in volume of cerebral volume there, okay? The hypothesis, one of the hypotheses about why you get Alzheimer's disease has to do with a declining amount of acetylcholine in the cortex. And true, if you quantify acetylcholine, it goes down. Now, what came first? Did the reduction in nerves come first and result in a reduction in acetylcholine, or was it the acetylcholine? Was that the problem first and it caused the cells to die? Who knows? But the reason that acetylcholine is the predominant theory is that drugs used to enhance acetylcholine, the level of acetylcholine, seem to improve the dementia of Alzheimer's. The biggest place where you see acetylcholine in the brain here, it starts in the basal forebrain, right here, at the, right there. And these project all over the cerebral cortex. You have a very robust acetylcholine containing network of fibers in the head. Okay. Other areas like the hippocampus also involve acetylcholine, and the degeneration of the hippocampus memories are related to the hippocampus. Don, towards the end there, if you fed him breakfast, 30 minutes later, he wouldn't know that he had eaten. Not that he couldn't remember what he ate, he didn't even know whether or not he'd eaten. So that's how severe memory loss can be. It's not distant memories. He could probably have told you where he served in the Navy in 1944, but he couldn't tell you what he had for, if he had breakfast not 5 minutes ago. Okay, so memories up here, and then as it advances, you get down in here. You get a loss of social interaction. Don lived over there, Edgemere Park. It's a historic area. Everybody in Edgemere, he lived there, you know, since the 20s. Everybody there knew him. I mean, he redid the floors, the hardwood floors of just about every house in Edgemere Park. Everybody knew Don. Everybody loved Don. We couldn't get him out of bed. He withdrew. He withdrew and would not socialize, not one bit. I mean, it was hard to get him to do anything. One of the guys, a big guy, a friend of mine, was one of his nurses and had him up one day. As he died in October, so that summer before he died, he had him out at Lincoln Park. Don was a big golfer, putting on the green, and it was 150 freaking degrees that day. And next thing you know, Don is in a state of delirium, and he calls me up. I meet him at the hospital. Don didn't know where in the hell he was, and so that right there is the difference between delirium and dementia. So the neurologist swore he had a stroke and put him on Keppra. You know, did a CT and an MRA, tox screen, all this kind of stuff, said, oh, he had a stroke. He didn't have a stroke. He had a stroke, all right, a heat stroke. He didn't have a, what an idiot she was. Anyway, here's the thing though, with all of that stuff going on, they still retain the ability to walk just fine. And as you see right there, bedridden, ultimately in fetal position, you saw it right there. Management of Alzheimer's disease, this is where you're going to come in. Aricept is probably the drug of choice for treating dementia, Alzheimer's, or treating dementia, Aricept. And it's a drug that will, like an acetylcholinesterase inhibitor, it increases the amount of acetylcholine in the cerebral cortex. The problem with Aricept, or the problem with any of the drugs to treat dementia, the cholinergic effects of dementia, Jamie Massengill this morning did a wonderful thing when he was telling you about not mixing, or when you mix NSAIDs with an SSRI, you have to worry about GI bleeding, right? He told you about that, right? That's a great thing. That's a thing you need to do all the time. When you're dealing with a patient, if you're going to start them on a medicine, or you're going to adjust the medicine, what else are you going to jack with? And this is an example here. In the elderly people have a problem with peeing and pooping. It's peeing and pooping. They just have a problem. And those things are cholinergic driven things. The problem with treating Don with Aricept is if you tried to give him a dose that might help his cognition a little bit, he couldn't pee. Or he would get so constipated, you know, that would be a medical emergency. So it was really difficult. We wound up not having him on anything like Aricept because of his peeing and pooping. Advise caregiver to attend an Alzheimer's disease support group. Right there is where that's the take-home message of today. Don's lost. You've lost Don. Don's gone. The person you need to take care of is the person taking care of Don. Because this is such a demanding disease to take care of. Because Don's coming in there every 5 minutes wanting something that you just gave him 5 minutes ago. He's asking you the same question 50 times within 5 minutes. It's very frustrating. They have sleep problems. They'll be up all night long. I think Amber said he was up all night long, walking around the house. The paranoid. And it's just amazing. You really have to take care of the caregiver. And you need to counsel them on what's going to happen. And make sure that if you're taking care of your husband with Alzheimer's disease, and you have like a mom's day out. You have somebody to come in to sit while you take care of yourself. Okay. An ID alert, because the people that are silver alert, these are people with dementia. Don, we had locks on the inside of the doors. We had alarms on the doors. They slept by the door. It was crazy. That son of a bitch could still get out of that house at 2 o'clock in the morning, banging on the neighbors. I should have Amber come back down here to tell you this thing that happened one time. He got out on her watch. So she's trying to get him back in the house, and he's yelling like 7 o'clock on a Sunday night. help, this woman's gonna kill me. It was the funniest thing. Anyway, so, get an ID alert thing here. Make sure somebody else has the power of attorney, because you're gonna need to deal with it. I'm telling you, having gone through it myself, it's amazing what you have to do to take over somebody's affairs. And this is something you need to talk to with your parents about right now. Don't wait. Make sure you lay it out now. Now, I'm gonna tell you one thing that's most damn frustrating. His Social Security, so I now have power of attorney according to his trust and everything. So I gotta go down to the Social Security office and get my name on his Social Security. I gotta get it attached to his Social Security. And I sat down there, it was over there at Shepherd Mall, for 4 hours in the most ignorant, bureaucratic shit I've ever been through in my life. That's our federal government right there. That started this process. Then you gotta go to every bank, you gotta go to the post office, you gotta go to everything. Every utility, when you try to get Don's utility to put in your name so you can keep the lights on, you think that's easy? Because it's not your house. This is a huge issue that you really need to talk to some people before, while you still can. Okay? Screening labs and slow down on the alcohol. Thankfully, Don never drank. So, and then you got to start discussing the driving issue. When do you stop driving? Don finally recognized. Don could get to his doctor's office, and he could get to his dentist office, and he could get to his barber. Those were the 3 places he knew he could get there. And I knew that because I followed him to make sure he got there. Well, one day, this was when I was working at OU, he had an appointment to see a doctor. He came up there, when he came out of the doctor's appointment, he didn't remember where his truck was. There you go. No more driving. So try to convince an 86-year-old man or 87-year-old man you can't drive anymore is not an easy thing to do.
My grandfather, my dad's oldest of 7, so the siblings couldn't agree on whether or not they wanted to take his car away. He's gonna be 90 this year, and so they made him do the driving test. I guess they do this driving test to see if they're allowed to keep their car and stuff, and he passed it because he's perfectly capable of driving. He just is kind of demented now, and it took like 2 weeks, and he drove an hour and a half from home and was sitting in a golf course parking lot, and a police officer called my uncle and was like, hey, we found your dad sitting by himself, doesn't know where he is. So now they're taking his car away.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing is you can't keep the car there. You can't take his keys away from him. He'll find keys, or she'll find keys. You got to get rid of the car. So this was made more difficult because I'm not even related to the guy. All of these things are more difficult if you're not directly related to them. So, okay, donazepam, donepezil. Does it delay? It's like it's like a Aricept thing here. Does it delay nursing home placement? And so in this one study here, it did delay nursing home placement by 1.5 years or so, maybe on after 2 years, which is good. Which is good. There's a big thing here about ginkgo biloba and delaying Alzheimer's disease. This is one of the studies that they did. There's the Journal of the American Medical Association, and it showed that there was absolutely no benefit in this particular study. And so, The other type of dementia that you're gonna run into is Lewy body dementia. And it's largely like Alzheimer's, it's in the elderly population. But instead of plaques and tangles on histology, you have the presence of these things called Lewy bodies. I'll show you one here in a minute. The difference between the two, now they both have dementia with the cognitive issues and cognitive decline. In Lewy body disease, though, they also have movement-related issues like Parkinson type symptoms. So it's a more, instead of in Don's case, you know, he's not really tremor, he doesn't have much of a tremor, and does pretty well walking. And people with Lewy body disease, they have a lot of problems with Parkinsonian gait and things like that. The other thing is that they have problems with sleep. About half of them significant sleep issues. Now it says right here, excellent response to acetylcholinesterase inhibitors. We'll see about that in just a second. That's a Lewy body right there. It's a protein, just like the tau protein. Not just like this, it's a different protein, but it's an accumulation of this protein where it's not supposed to be. So is it an accumulation because of the disease, or is it an accumulation that causes the disease? Like plaques and tangles, you just don't know. You don't know. All right, so here's the thing about does Lewy body disease respond well to acetylcholinesterase inhibitors? Well, here they did a study for 24 weeks, half a year, and showed this amazing response in half a year. Do you think that's a valid study? You know, if you're dealing with a progressive, slow dementia, do you think that's a valid study? I certainly don't. Also, they used a total of 50 patients to make this claim. So let's go ahead and take a break. So